Steve Rosen is a music journalist and author who's talked to and written about some of the greatest guitar players in history, including Jimmy Page, Steve Satriani, and many others. Steve has written for iconic publications like Guitar World, Playboy, Classic Rock, Circus, and hundreds of others. He's also written 7 previous books, including biographies on Jeff Beck, Black Sabbath, and now Eddie Van Halen, with whom he's shared a special friendship for 26 years. But let's hear it from him. Please join me in welcoming Steve Rosen. I'm just going to play this real quick.
I'm going to tell you about this great book by Steve Rosen called ToneChaser. Yes, it's all about Eddie. Steve interviewed him for 26 years, got to know him really well, close friends, played with him, and you've got to just check out this book. Look how big this is. Look at that. It's amazing. It's fantastic information in here and insights into the genius of King Eddie Van Halen. Check it out. ToneChaser by Steve Rosen.
Take it away.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for braving the rain. But we all knew it was going to rain anyway, right? So that's good. Somehow it seems apropos that I do my first signing for ToneChaser here at Book Soup in the heart of West Hollywood. I live just a few minutes northeast of here, up in Laurel Canyon, on a little street called Weepaw Way. And those of you who have read the book know all about Weepaw Way. And those of you who haven't read the book, well, why the hell not? Come on! Anyway, I was renting this very funky and amazingly cool little guest house for $125 a month. And it was there at 1909 Weepaw Way where I spent many, many incredible hours with Edward. Just a few blocks west from here, down Sunset Boulevard at the Whiskey A Go-Go, was where I first met Edward on a June night in 1977, and where this story really begins. So I was introduced to him by my friend Michelle Meyer, who was booking the Whiskey at the time, and we ended up talking for about an hour or so, and it was one of those perfect conversations, you know, no heavy lulls, no screaming silences. When we were done, Edward runs out of the room and he comes back with a pencil. He picks up a piece of paper from the floor of the dressing room where we were, and wrote something on it and hands it to me, you know, and it was his phone number. He said, "Call me, man, I hope we meet again." Little did I know that we would meet again and again and again over the span of the ensuing 26 years, until 2003 when we had our last conversation. 17 years after the final time we spoke to each other in 2003, I sat down in August 2020 to write about all the things we'd said to each other, and to write about all the surreal moments I'd spent in his company. I wrote about sitting 2 feet away from him in my little Weepaw Way living room and watching him pick up my 66 Strat unplugged and play the riffs from the songs that would several months later appear on the Van Halen 2 album. Sitting just a few inches away from him, I saw what a truly miraculous guitar player he was. I mean, I knew how good he was before, but watching that was something otherworldly. I wrote about jumping into his Lamborghini Countach, excuse me. Jumping is the wrong word because I couldn't even figure out how to open the freaking scissor doors, much less how to get into the car. So maneuvered or calculated or slowly lowered myself are probably better words to describe that particular exercise. And anyway, then we drove to the local guitar center because he needed a set of guitar strings. 5150, his home studio, had every high-tech piece of outboard gear and mics and guitars and amps, and Eddie Van Halen didn't have a set of guitar strings. So there's only one way to solve that problem, right? We drive over to the Guitar Center, and yes, Edward drives crazy fast, and he gets the strings, and he has to borrow $10 from me to pay for them. We've just driven in his very, very expensive sports car from his multi-million-dollar studio, and he didn't have $10 for a set of strings. I mean, how perfect is that? How much does that tell you about the guy? I mean, you know, you couldn't have written that. We also stopped at a liquor store for a 6-pack of beer, and he asked if I could pay for the beer, and I did. I wrote about introducing him to Ritchie Blackmore, Billy Gibbons, and Les Paul on various occasions. And then I wrote about how he forgot I'd ever made those introductions just days later. I wrote about laughing with him and crying with him and interviewing him and just hanging out with him. And oh yeah, I wrote about jamming with him. That happened a few times actually. I did, man. I jammed with Edward Van Halen. What? Edward Van Halen, you want to jam with me? Sure. Of course, no problemo. Am I nervous? No. Why would I be nervous jamming with you, Edward Van Halen? Why would I be intimidated jamming with you, Edward Van Halen, the greatest and most influential guitar player on the planet? Am I so terrified I can barely hold a guitar pick or remember how to breathe? No. Even now, I'm telling you about these incredible moments, I feel like I'm making it up, like none of it never happened, but it did. There I was, a 25-year-old rock journalist hanging out with a musician who was changing the world. I was in a Dali painting. Time and space and reality was twisted and morphed and mutated, and I could not begin to believe this was happening to me. I felt that way every time I was with him. A lot of times he would just show up on my doorstep, weep away, no phone call, nothing. He would just be there and wanted to hang or talk, or he would call and ask me to come over to his house in Coldwater Canyon, which is about a 10-minute drive away up along Mulholland. I'd find him in his studio, 5150, and he'd be holding a guitar, of course, because for Edward that was like a limb, and he'd be smoking a Winston, which I honestly detested. What was I going to do, tell Edward Van Halen to stop smoking? When I talk about those moments here, it all seems so simple. What did it feel like being friends with the greatest guitar player on the planet? That was the heart of ToneChaser. Simple. That was the book I wanted to write, and I thought, I can write that book in 3 months. I've written other books, and none of them ever took more than 3 or 4 months. 14 months, 580 pages, and 250,000 words later, and I was still writing. What kind of misguided, myopic knucklehead was I? I didn't think I'd even finish it. I didn't think I'd ever start it. There were 1,000 different challenges. Some of the stuff I was writing about happened over 45 years ago, and I had trouble remembering what happened 45 seconds ago. Simply getting the chronology right took weeks and weeks and months. Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood, folks. Pouring over hours and hours of interviews and conversations and figuring out when they took place. Trying to frame each encounter as perfectly as I could. What mood was Edward in that day? Was he up, melancholy, energized, talkative, somber, sober? Was he drinking? Was I drinking? Were we drinking? Was he doing blow? Was I doing blow? Were we doing blow? I wanted the reader. I wanted you to feel like you were there. I wanted you to feel how my heart was beating like a hummingbird. And I wanted you to hear the squeaks and groans of my pathetically cheap little cassette player. And I wanted you to hear Edward's voice. And I wanted you to see Edward trying to shake hands with a reluctant Ritchie Blackmore. I wanted you to see all of that. I began ToneChaser on August 24th, 2020, my birthday, and just 6 weeks or so before Edward passed. That was horrible, of course, and I know all of you were devastated the same way I was. When that happened, I thought the book might be a mistake and maybe I should just leave it. I thought about that a lot. I thought about that a long time. I continued writing and thought, even if no one ever reads this, I want to finish it. I'm really happy I did. Judging from the responses I received from you, I know I made the right decision. And more so, Edward was always about honesty. He always told me exactly what he was thinking, and sometimes that was hard to hear. So I don't think he would have expected anything less from me. I believe ToneChaser is an extraordinarily honest and unfiltered look at my relationship with the most influential guitarist who ever lived, and I do believe that. I believe he was that guitar player. Influenced more guitar players than anybody else ever did. Edward was an exceedingly complex dude, and trying to get inside him and understand him and interpret who he was and why he did the things he did was a journey that would take me 14 months to complete. I wanted to paint as realistic a portrait of him as I could, and that took a lot of time and mad scrambling to find the words, and I was determined to only use the good words. I was very deliberate in finding the perfect word to define, describe who Edward Van Halen was. I spent several months rewriting and editing, and to the consternation of my art director, who is here tonight, who ended up occupying a dual role as editor, he inserted commas and eliminated semicolons, and I don't even know what the hell a semicolon does. I mean, I had a freaking million of them, and I don't even know what they were doing there, man. So we spent weeks just getting rid of those freaking things. I wanted to write the perfect solo, a literary solo, if you will, where every word served the purpose to move the melody along, and there were quiet moments and explosive moments. When it was over, you had said something, you had left something with the reader. I wanted to riff for 580 pages and bang on the keyboard like Edward would bang on the fretboard. He did two-hand tapping, I did two-hand typing. I only wanted to write the good notes, and those of you who have read the book understand that pun. And those of you who haven't read it, well, come on, people, what are you waiting for? What am I doing up here anyway? So I temporarily borrowed. Well, I'm amongst friends, so we'll call it what it is. I stole from the greatest soloists I've ever read, John Steinbeck, T.C. Boyle, Hunter Thompson, Tom Robbins, Charles Bukowski, John Fonte, Russell Banks, Harry Cruz, and a million others. Every grammatical guitar player I ever aspired to in creating the perfect solo. I mean, look around you. You can hear them, right? Can you hear them playing? I was chasing after my own tones, right? Tones of fulfillment, tones of understanding, tones of happiness. I wanted the book to read like a novel. I wanted it to read like fiction. I wanted characters who were likable and lovable. And in Edward's case, that wasn't difficult because that's who he was. I wanted them to lean on each other and love each other and be there for one another. I wanted the book to be inventive, engaging, joyous, sad, and touching. In a way, it was a buddy book. I like to call it a modern fable. A rock journalist finding his way in the world and banging out stories for any magazine who will run his byline meets a musician, a giant, a once-in-a-lifetime mythical creature who has taken 6 wires and a hunk of wood and will not only change the writer's life, but will forever change the very definition of what it means to play the electric guitar. So after 14 months of seeing more 3 o'clock in the mornings than I ever thought I would, and drinking gallons and gallons of coffee, and being consumed by the thought I'd never finish this, I finally did. Somewhere around October 2021, I typed the last period. I walked away and thought, I wrote a good book, man. I didn't play one wrong note. And what I hoped was that you, the fan, the reader, would walk away from the book thinking, I now understand Edward Van Halen a little better than I did before. And I hope that's what you got from the book, guys. And for those of you who haven't read the book, I can only say, what are you waiting for? I mean, what am I doing up here? Come on, get the book. Let's read this thing. I want to take a moment to give a shout out to Dan and to Emma and everybody at Book Soup for putting this all together and making it happen. In 17 days, on January 26th, Edward would have celebrated his 68th birthday. I miss him, and I know every one of you misses him. I wish he was still here, blowing cigarette smoke in my face and smiling his beautiful smile, and I was watching him play guitar like nobody ever did, nobody ever would. So, Edward, happy 68th birthday, buddy. That's about all I have to say. Thank you again to everybody who came out tonight and for braving the rain. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Steve. And again, the book is available for purchase if you haven't gotten your copy yet. And want to do a signing right here.
We do a signing here, or if anybody has any questions,
Yeah.
happy to answer some questions if I'm
Does anyone have
able.
any questions?
So what did
Sir?
Richie do when you introduced Ed to him?
Oh my God. You were there that night.
Where was that?
That was the Randy Hansen show. That's the picture
Oh,
show.
backstage at Long Beach?
Yeah. You were there. Were you on the Queen Mary afterwards?
Well,
For the after?
remember the girl I used to go out with? Her grandfather owned the Queen Mary, so I used to get those suites there. Were you ever one of those parties?
No, you never invited me.
Well, we were talking back then, I think.
Yeah, no, we were friends. We were friends.
But I don't remember seeing you introduce, because I was there with Al and Ed that night. Yeah, we all drove down there together. Me, Ed, and Nell, we drove to that show, and then we were backstage, and Randy came off stage. Richie Blackmore, you motherfucker, you asshole, I'm gonna kick your ass. Because Richie came on second.
Right.
Randy came on the headliner, and he was doing so good that Richie pulled the plug. So, anyway, but I don't recall Ed leaving me and Al and hanging to go meet Richie.
So
what
for those,
happened?
so for those of you who want to know who this opinionated young man is, this is Neil Zlozower. This is the iconic Van Halen photographer who shot the front and back covers of my book and all the covers inside, and has his own book out on Edward Van Halen photos. And if you don't get that book, you're crazy. Neil and I worked together for many years, and he was kind enough to come out tonight, and maybe he'll stick around and help me sign some books later on. So yeah, so I knew that Ed was a monster Richie Blackmore fan, and which is why I said, Ed, let's go and want to go to Long Beach to see Blackmore's Rainbow. So he said, yeah. So afterwards they had an after hours party at the Queen Mary, and I saw Richie over there, who I'd interviewed. I thought, this is going to be epic. I'm going to introduce Eddie Van Halen to Richie Blackmore. So I walk him over, and Richie kind of looks up, and I think he half recognizes me, maybe he doesn't, and he kind of half-heartedly shakes my hand. And before I can say anything, Richie looks at Edward and goes, oh wait, hey, I know you, don't you play guitar? Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I mean, Richie was being this very cruel.
But he's a jokester anyway. Remember when he threw the piece of bread at Cozy and hit him in the head and he pointed to you like
exactly.
You did?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm lucky he didn't throw a freaking fork at me. Yeah. So yeah, that was introducing Ed to Richie Blackmore. It didn't go down so well. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a question. Probably the most infamous friendship you created was between Edward and Les Paul at the Guitar Center at the Rock Walk of Fame.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
Everybody knows about that friendship. The one thing I always wondered about, though, and you talk a little bit about it in the book, the relationship that Don had during that scenario.
The relationship, Don.
Yeah. Because he never goes out.
No, never.
Yeah. And
Never.
I know how much he loved Les because of his innovations.
Right. I don't mean to interrupt you. If we keep watching, you'll see a picture, and there's 4 guys there. That's the night Keith is talking about. I'm on the left, and then Ed, and then Don Landy, and Les Paul. Don Landy was Van Halen's engineer, and very close to Edward, and Don came out that night to the Guitar Center Rock Walk induction, and he sat in on that interview when I introduced Edward to Les Paul, and that was a monumental night. I mean, that was a night that went perfectly as it should have gone. They both had this ultimate respect for each other, and in the book I write about all the guitar players I can think of who not only built guitars but played the guitars they built, and the only people I could think of were Les Paul and Brian May. I'm not talking about signature guitars where Slash has his signature Les Paul and stuff, but guys who were actually out there with saws and chisels, making guitars. But that was an amazing night. Don had a very close relationship with Ed and Ed with Don. But as we all know, or as we know from reading the book, Edward booted Don out, which I thought would never happen. So yeah, I guess Ed was just going through changes, and I don't know. I try to answer it as best I can, but I don't know. Big question.
So I would like to know your input on the players that shaped his playing and how he approached it as an artist and a fan as a classic on stage. And I even heard he was a big fan of Peter Gabriel, which is cool. To me, that's so left field for what you expect. But if you guys are ever hanging out listening to records, what was his take when you put on a record of some of your guys' favorite bands that you listened to? What was his, what was he getting out of listening to music
Right,
that
right.
shaped him?
Right, I'll give you there's a great story in the book about that. For starters, Ed never listened to music. He rarely listened to radio. He didn't have a record player, you know. Back in the day, I had a very, very big record collection. I mean, like 8 or 9,000 records, huge collection. And Ed was over at the house one day, repo away, and I said, Ed, you know, I've got a bunch of albums. You know, maybe you'd like to listen to some stuff, you know. So I just started pulling stuff left and right, stuff that I thought he would be interested in. Stuff I can remember was, I remember pulling out like some Larry Carlton stuff. You know, studio guitar player, played with Steely Dan. Ed was kind of a prog guy, you know, he was into UK and you know, Peter Gabriel, Genesis. I think I pulled some Supertramp, Gentle Giant. I pulled some Les Paul. I think I pulled some blues stuff. I mean, maybe some Rory Gallagher, you know, some more obscure blues stuff that I could think of. I mean, I gave him like a huge stack of records, and thinking, you know, if he just goes home and listens to it, you know, and here's, you know, one little bit that somebody does, and you know, that strikes something in him. I thought, how great would that be, you know? He never talked about listening to one record, never said one word, and never gave me my freaking albums back either.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, you know, yeah, Ed would talk about Clapton, you know, but obviously, I mean, I can't hear Clapton in his playing. I mean, once in a while, if you listen real closely, maybe a little bit. I can hear more Jeff Beck, but he says he never really liked Jeff Beck. He liked Blow by Blow, but he never listened to the Truth of Beck-Ola records. Which I thought, how is that possible? How could you not listen to that stuff?
Yeah.
I don't think he was particularly a big Page fan, although, you know, apparently, you know, one of the stories go that, you know, he got his tapping thing from, you know, going to a Zepp concert and watching, you know, Jimmy do a single note thing. But it's not like he'd ever say, oh my God, that first Zeppelin record, or, you know, he just never talked about records that way. You know, Holdsworth he loved, but it's not like you say, oh my God, I love that second Holdsworth record, the first Holdsworth. He just never spoke in those terms. You know, he'd talk about, you know, Ted Nugent, he listened to Ted, you know, because he would cover those songs. And, you know, ZZ Top he listened to. But I don't think he just ever particularly listened to that much music. I just don't really think he did.
I asked because it intrigued me that, you know, in the early days when they were a cover band, they would do Trower songs or something. He played it so convincingly as a teenager that I'm like, how would he not absorb all that so much? And
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. But I mean, on the other side of that is, he would do a Trower song the way Eddie Van Halen would do it, right? I mean, yeah, we recognize that as a Trower song. We recognize LaGrange as a ZZ Top song, but it always had that Van Halen stamp on it. But that is an interesting point. So yeah, you think he would have been an amalgam of all those people. I can't hear it. I mean, I really don't hear it. Sure.
You know, once Ed was at my house, and I was like, he was probably 78. I'm like, yeah, so put a picture of someone, I'll make you something. You want Clapton, you want Beck, you want Page, you know, who do you want? You know, I'll make you anything you want. He goes, hey, you know, you got any Alan Holdsworth? I was like, out of everybody I shot, he wanted Alan Holdsworth.
You shot Holdsworth?
Shot him in UK, and then a few different times, and then I shot him here at the Roxy, which is funny because I think he played the night before, and I knew all the bouncers there. So I went to one of the bouncers. I'm like, hey, were you here last night? And the bouncer's like, yeah, I was here last night. I go, how was he? He goes, hey, man, if you like whale noises, it was great. You know, it was sounded like two whales getting ready to squeeze or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that Ed would have picked up on Holdsworth.
Yeah, that's what we wanted a picture of out of everybody.
Did you give him one?
I don't think so. I don't think he ever got around to looking. But another time, the last time I ever saw Ed, I made a whole bunch of Cream bootlegs for him because I know how much he liked Clapton. So I went to dinner because we were going to discuss the book. I go, here. He goes, what's this, man? I go, oh, I made you a whole bunch of, you know, Cream bootlegs. He goes, I don't want those. I go, what's wrong? He goes, I don't listen to any music. He just, and that was his favorite, I think, Eric Clapton.
I think
in
so.
his day.
I think so.
But he didn't even want him. He didn't. I don't think. I don't think he wanted to be influenced by anybody.
Yeah.
He wanted what was going on in his brain. He didn't want someone to say you ripped off, you know, Billy Gibbons or Jimmy Page or whatever.
I agree, though. He was so unique. I mean, I don't think he ever could have been influenced that much by anybody. No, I agree with that. Definitely.
So, what I really appreciated Eddie, well, I'll call him Eddie because I don't know him or anything, but I know him as Eddie in my mind. And I became kind of a new old fan in the sense that I remember the first time we were talking about this earlier, and I was posting about it, that the first time I heard Eruption, and then the first time I discovered who Edward Van Halen was as a player, and then getting into this community of people online through Johnny, you know, he posts a lot of stuff, and I've learned a lot about Edward Van Halen and what he did as not just a player, but not just a musician and a writer, but as an inventor. You know, it's just fascinating how he let the ideas that were coming to him lead him to do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And one of the things that I always kind of think about is that, and people talk about, is his style and his playing with his brother Alex. You know, the swing that they had in their playing had to, in my mind, come from his exposure growing up with his dad being, I believe he was a clarinetist or a sax player, right? And Alan Holdsworth wanted to be a sax player but wasn't popular, and so he became a guitar player and played like a sax player on the guitar. And to me it seems like there's something to the influence of not just the classical music that they were brought up to play because his dad made them do that, you know. He memorized things by ear to the point where he didn't read the sheet music, and I can kind of understand that because as a kid at playing piano and stuff myself too, that's something I had that problem with teachers. They says, are you reading the sheet music? I'm like, I already read it, I know it. You know, and it's kind of like a thing. So I always wondered, like, what are your thoughts? How much do you know about his experience with his brother and around their dad growing up in that household with that influence of jazz and that kind of bebop-y kind of style dance music, which was stuff, dance hall kind of music stuff his dad probably, you know, they were around that growing up in the United States, right? That had to influence a lot of his, you know, immersively somehow in him. And the way he approached the guitar.
Yeah.
What do you know about, like, what can you
I mean,
share
honestly, you know, just one of those things I wish I'd spoken to him more about it. You know, I wanted, you know, in the book I talk about wanted to talk to his dad, wanted to talk to his mother, you know, and now that lore and that history has gone forever, you know. And I mean, I should have just beat on his skull. I said, we're gonna go talk to him now, you know. But yeah, I mean, music was always in the house, and his mother played the keyboards a little bit too. So, you know, he talks about, you know, his mom and his dad, you know, jamming at Christmas tunes and stuff. But certainly it was ingrained in him. I don't know how much of that, the jazz bebop thing, but I know that his dad, you know,
that
back in
swing,
Amsterdam.
that feel they have.
Yeah,
you know,
there was a lot of classical there too.
Yeah.
You know, he was playing in orchestras and that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of that comes out in Van Halen's music. I mean, I think it was inside of him. I think we hear that in bits and pieces. But I think Ed at heart was just a rock and roll guy. But I think the obvious fact that he was around music all the time, I think that was a huge part of it. You know, had his dad never played, would he have picked up the guitar? I mean, I don't know.
I'm just curious that him being such a fan of Holdsworth, I wonder if that had something to do with his affinity to his father as well, if there was some kind of connection in that way.
Maybe.
And then also, for me personally, what I loved about him is that he made being a synth player cool. Which in the 80s wasn't always the case, you know.
Yeah.
You weren't always the cool guy. Like if you look at the Cars, I forget his name, even the keyboard player, you know, and Rhodes on Duran Duran. I mean, these guys were phenomenal, you know, keyboard players and stuff. But you know, outside of the guy with sticks, you know, I don't know if you'd call him cool. I thought Tommy Shaw was cool. You know, and I always thought the guitarist was a cool guy. But Edward made being a keyboardist cool, and so for me, he was that hero as a synth player and a keyboardist back then.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that
cool.
he would do that. You know, Dave told him not to do that, and everybody said, "Jump, don't do that." And you know, Ed was a really democratic guy. You know, and he took the input from the other guys very seriously. But I think with Jump, he knew, he goes, you know, we're doing this, you know. This is mine, we're going to do this. But, yeah. And I think he did a lot of his composing on keyboards too. A lot of those changes were keyboard chords. I mean, you know, there's no way you can place them.
Well, the cat is.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
If I'm not mistaken, you knew Eddie pretty well before Van Halen 1 even came out, the whiskey and whatever. And I'm just curious, do you think he had a sense of the god he was going to be before Van Halen 1 even came out? Or was he just like rocking and who really cares? I mean, I don't know, where was he, you think, in terms of that? Did he have some awareness of how good he was or no?
I think Edward always knew how good he was, but he never would have said, "Oh man, we're going to be huge, man. We're going to sell 1 million records. We're better than Foreigner." He never talked like that, but he always knew how good he was. He never had to tell you that. You know, people said he was humble. He was a very humble guy, but he also he knew what he did, and you didn't need to tell him that. No, I don't think he had any sense of where the band was going to go. You know, when I talked to him the first night, my brother Mick was there with me, and before the record had come out, and I asked him, you know, he goes, "Yeah, I think we made a good record, man. It's good." You know, he knew it was a good record. Did he have any sense what that was going to do or what he was going to be? I don't think he had an inkling. Whereas I think there are other guitar players you talk to coming out with first records that do well out of the gate, and they'll tell you, "Yeah, man, we're going to be freaking huge. I'm going to be the biggest guitar player in the world." He was never like that. Never. I never heard him talk like that. So amazing that he could keep that sense about him. Which isn't to say that, excuse me, there weren't, you know, pressures, and he didn't feel things like we all do. He did, but yeah. I don't think he ever needed to kind of grasp at those straws like, "I'm the freaking best. I'm gonna play faster." You know, I don't think that was part of his agenda ever. Yeah. Yes.
How are you?
How are you?
What's going on? We haven't seen each other in so long. It's great. So now that you've had a little bit of time to think about your relationship with Ed, just beyond how great of a guitarist he was, what did you take from his life? Was it his outlook on life? What did you admire about him beyond the
I always thought he always seemed to be so centered. You know, again, he had all these things pulling on him, but whenever I was around him, he just seemed so balanced, even when he was going through stuff, some heavy stuff. Now look, there were moments when he wasn't, understandably, you know, his father passing away or, you know, things like that. But other times, you know, he was so self-aware, you know, and I thought, how do you get like that? I could never understand it. And he was a pretty deep guy, you know, and we'd talk about stuff, and I go, "Oh man, you know, or girlfriend," or "Oh, it's New Year's Eve," and you know, and he'd say something, and he'd really understand, and he'd really care about it, you know, he'd really try to be a helpful guy. Yeah, it was those qualities. I mean, and I think somehow, you know, does that get translated into his playing? I mean, do you feel that kind of that thing in the notes he plays? I don't know, but he was just a rare guy. I mean, yeah, just being aware of himself, you know, which is an incredibly hard thing to do. I mean, you know, and right there and all the time, and I don't know, man, that's a balancing act I've never figured out. So,
Thank you.
yeah, good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you.
I've enjoyed your writing through the years,
Thank you.
and I have a question on you being kind of the technical de facto voice of Ed to us, the audience, through your magazine work. At the time, did you ever let you know what he felt about your writing, or was there any kind of effort at the time by '85 where you had material set aside for the book? What did he think about your perspective on it?
What did Edward think?
Yeah. Or did you
Edward
read
didn't think
anything?
anything because I don't think he had a clue.
Oh.
I think Edward knew that I wrote for magazines. And I write the book. I don't think he ever read one thing I ever wrote. He certainly never read any of the 3 big Guitar World stories I did. And I remember kind of, having them or maybe hinting about them. He just was not interested. So I never knew if he thought I was a great writer, a terrible writer. I was writing stuff about him that was nonsensical. I mean, he had a sense about me. He knew that I wasn't gonna write something bad about him, but I don't think he ever had a sense of that at all, which is weird. There was one time, and again I write about in the book, he was over at the house, and there was a typewritten, this is back in the days of typewriters, if we remember typewriters, and there was a manuscript of the story. I went to New Orleans with Ed to a NAMM show, like the big music convention show, and it was there, and he picked it up and he started looking at it, and he goes, "What's that?" I go, "Oh, that's that story, I wrote about us going to the NAMM show." He goes, "Oh yeah?" So he's reading it, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the first time he's ever read anything I've written, I mean, what if he thinks it's horrible or something? And so he's reading it, and he goes, "Silver." Excuse me? He goes, "It's a silver can." I'm sorry? Ed drinks Schlitz malt liquor, and the color of the can is blue and silver. I wrote it was blue and gold. So he said, "No, it's silver." Thanks, Ed. And that's what he saw. So in answer to your question, no, I don't think he had a clue. Really, he knew that I interviewed people. He'd come over to the house. I have pictures of me and a lot of people on the walls, and he'd see those pictures. But beyond that, I don't think he had a sense of what I was writing about him or anybody else for that matter.
But you had drawn a contract, or he had a response to you guys settling that. There wasn't any drafts for you, or let's say any kind of draft work or early work that management saw or he saw. I mean, was there any stage at that time that you completed anything?
Of the book?
Yeah,
No.
of a future book?
No. You saw the contract. That was '85. That's when I started, working in earnest on the book. Interviewing people. I don't think I wrote one word because I was really just gathering stuff together. And by the time, it was kind of like, "Ed, let's kind of do this." He was, it just disappeared. So yeah, no, I never wrote one word.
But lastly, did Don ever tell him you were correct, or the interviews were accurate or great, or
Don?
Did Don ever tell you, or did Don tell anything how the effect
maybe,
of those articles were?
Maybe. Don might have been aware of what I was doing. He may have whispered in his ear. If he did, Ed never said anything to me. "Oh yeah, Don said your story's cool, man." It just wasn't on his radar, I guess what I wrote wasn't important as much as maybe who I was, and he trusted me. He knew he could trust me. I don't know. I kind of wish he had read some of my stuff. Did Ed used to look at your photos and go, "Those are"?
I had no idea. He never said anything to me about any of the photos.
And this guy's worked with them, was on the road with them, shot thousands and thousands of photos, and seen the photos. Okay, I'm gonna look at. He was just that kind of guy. Not that he was trying to be mean or negative. He just
Didn't interest him.
What's that?
Photos didn't interest
No,
him.
neither did the writing, man. Cool question.
Yes. So obviously, as someone from the outside, as a fan, we get to see every Van Halen in interviews and on stage, and so he's lively. It's just, he moves around as a character. But as someone who met him early on and then saw him become over the years who was he in the beginning versus who he was at the end, and then do you have maybe a small story where you're like, that's Ed, that's definitely Ed's character?
Well, I don't want to give the book away.
Yeah.
Edward changed a lot from the time I first met him in '77 till 2003. At least in my eyes, he changed. I mean, a lot. What's a great story? God, there's so many, it's hard to even think of one. He would play me music for the albums before the albums would come out. So there was no vocals on them, so I'd hear the tracks naked, and you could really hear his guitar playing. And, you know, he did that for several records. And I would listen to that stuff, and I was just, it was just unbelievable hearing it that way. And I learned early on, and I mentioned it earlier, Ed didn't take the compliments really very well. You didn't have to say to him, Ed, you're an amazing guitar player. I think he knew it. He didn't need to hear it. He almost would become antagonized by it. He had played me one track, and there was a solo on there. This solo was so amazing. I wish I could remember which song it was. I can remember it was on the second or third record. And you know, I had to force myself. Don't become a, don't become a nudnik here. Don't say, Ed, that's a fucking great solo. Ed, but I remember saying, Ed, that's a really good solo. And I was trying to underplay it, so not to go insane. And he goes, oh, something like, oh, didn't you like it? Didn't you think it was good? I go, no, Ed, it was really good. He goes, yeah. He goes, I thought it was neat. The point of that story, and I say it better in the book, is that he has played this solo that is so freaking good. And I just wanted to say, Ed, this is the most amazing solo I've ever heard. This is great as anything I've ever heard any guitar player play. I kind of said, yeah, man, it's really good. And he thought because I was saying it that way that I didn't think it was good. So he was trying to defend it. So so this is when Edward Van Halen is like, he is a king of the world, right? He's like, and it was just such a beautiful encapsulation of who he was. For him to be that fragile about his music, or playing it for me, or taking my opinion so heavily. I mean, it made me feel unbelievable. My God, you really care that much about what I say. So that was amazing. And he was constantly doing those things, but he did change towards the end. Different things came into his life and happened to him. And I don't want to give the book away, but yeah, it did change. I think essentially he was the same person, but outwardly, at least to me, he was a changed person. Yeah, unfortunately.
When's the
Yes,
last
sir.
time you saw him?
2003. Well, it probably was before that. I probably hadn't seen him probably since 2000 somewhere. But the last time I talked was 2003.
I got one other thing. Your Twilight tapes.
Twilight tapes.
Yeah.
If we
Yes.
wait long enough, we'll see them come up.
Yep,
We'll see
they're up there.
couple of binders full of
Okay.
tapes.
And I was so thankful, to get a chance to spend time with you in your home, and we found the tape recorder in your pictures.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. I actually had a picture of this tape recorder. Do you remember what picture it was, Keith?
Yeah, it was the one with, I think it was B.B. King.
B.B. King.
Yeah, and also you had another one. Rainbow. I think it was a rainbow picture. Or,
Oh, maybe it was Randy Hansen?
might have been.
That number?
No. But it was an older picture.
Yeah.
From like early 70s.
Yeah. So I used to use a very cheap cassette player.
Yeah.
And I write about it in the book, and actually in a couple of pictures that I have, there's actually a picture of the cassette player and it.
Here's my question though about
yeah.
those Twilight tapes.
Yeah.
What was the big surprise takeaway when you re-listened to all of those? There they are. You just missed it. When you re-listened to all those tapes, what was the one scenario like, Oh my God, I totally forgot about that.
Oh my God, let me tell you, man, I forgot about 89% of that stuff. How personal Ed got with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff he was talking about his dad. I think that was the stuff he was talking about. First getting together with Sammy. There was some amazing stuff on there. I just have no recollection of those conversations at all, or any of that stuff that's on me. Some of it I vaguely remember. And again, I just wish I had recorded more, you know. I wish I had the cassette player going 24 hours a day when I was around him. But you can't do that. I mean, you can't sit there.
You have the recording of him jamming with you, though. Your riff.
Yeah. I do have that. I have Ed playing on one of my songs. He came over one day to Weep Away, and I was riding with a buddy. He comes in, and you know, I mean, he just shows up. I didn't, you know, my friend almost, you know, had a stroke, and I said, "Yeah, what are you guys working on?" Just, you know, some music, you know. And Ed knew that I wrote. And he says, "Hey man, can I play a little bit?" I go, "No, Ed, you can't play." So he, you know, goes over and plays my guitar, and you know, he starts messing around. He's never heard the music, and he starts playing these things, and it's so. You talk about moments that truly reveal who he is. We understand that he was an extraordinary guitar player, and he built his own guitars, and he wrote. But his sense of orchestration and what the guitar could do, and putting guitar parts together. He listened to this one song I had, and it wasn't a very complex song. I mean, the changes were pretty easy. But I mean, he never even listened to it. He kind of listened to the first couple chords, and he knew what it was going to be. And he just starts playing like these little parts, and they're like Van Halen parts that he would have played over one of his songs. But it's over my stuff, you know, and all of a sudden this song that was kind of like, it's now like, you know, and it's like, it was just, it was so musical. I mean, there are great guitar players who wouldn't have that musicality, that sense. You know, that was amazing. Yeah, that was an amazing moment. Yeah, thank God I had the cassette player on there. You know. But yeah, the Twilight tapes were the key, like I said, to opening all that stuff, because I realized how much personal stuff there was there. And it wasn't just more interview stuff. You know, it was like Ed just talking about life and things. And I thought, wow, that's cool. That's worth, you know, writing about. So, yeah.
You also got your guitar to sound good too.
Say it again?
You also got your guitar to sound good.
Yeah, exactly.
You had trouble tuning it, if I remember.
Exactly. And he played, and I played, and I go, Ed, I don't sound like you, pal. What's going on? If we're all done, we could, if anybody has anything they'd like signed, any books?
Yeah, for sure.
Does he have anything signed? You right here? Yeah, cool.
Perfect.
Something's got to roll first.
Come on. Don't you stray far. We're going to get Neil to sign some books as well.
Sorry.
Hey. Thank you. Hey. Good to see you. I was watching the news.
What's up, dudes? Thanks for watching. We'll go up and we'll talk to Steve as well. We actually already talked before we started. Hey, smash that thumbs up.
Yeah.
And so he got rid of my, I just left CBS, so it was like 2018.
Huh? You want a picture? Yeah, of course. Okay, cool. You got it.
So when it goes off, I go, you have to stand in there. Stand
Jay?
Thanks so much for riding this. I had that concert. That was my 1984.
No, I wasn't gonna do that.
Somebody told me today is the anniversary.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. Yes. It's supposed to be the relay. Yeah, it's supposed to be the release day for this one time. Which then meant we rolled out there and like.
Yeah, I noticed Jeff was
And they opened with
outside
Run with
with
the
signs.
Devil, and I thought, yeah. Was in,
We'll stand in line.
Bay Area, San Francisco. Thanks so much for putting this together.
Oh, thank you for coming.
One side.
Really. So what do you need? Neil, do you have a pen?
Give my email, you can email.
Yeah, okay.
Red for Tom.
And Thomas, we need to go.
Ryan, you got it, man.
Yeah, he's my partner.
I'm gonna send you his bio.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would like
Do they have this? They don't have this.
Who's this?
I don't know who this. Some keyboard dude from the '80s.
Nice t-shirt.
This day,
That's
39 years ago,
That's right, man.
'84, man. That was the one. Jump, Panama, Hot to Teacher.
Yeah.
So many hits.
Hey, Holly.
So many great songs. I mean, that whole album. You listen to that album on the way here, and coming down Santa Monica Boulevard, and Sunset and all, and just listen to the whole thing. It's only like 30-something minutes, right? And
Yeah,
just
it's like half an hour.
Every single note in that album, there's nothing wasted there. That whole album is just amazing.
Ryan, you got it, dude.
I love Diver Down, but 1984 really was the album.
Top.
The top. What's up, everybody? I'm so glad we came. I mean, my back is still wet from the rain, and it's kind of cold and all. And it's so great to hear the stories. I got to ask a question, something that's personally, personal to me, because honestly, Eddie made being a keyboard player so much more cool than it was back then. Because when you had somebody like him, and it's just like back then you had Geddy Lee and some of these other guys playing keyboards. I mean, they were cool, but when you had Eddie play the keyboards like that, and
Yeah, that was a cool question, man. I was gonna ask you that in the car today if you thought, because you guys, this is Laz, our friend. He's a keyboard player.
Yeah.
And when
really.
when '84 came out, that made being a keyboard player cool.
It made, before Jump was such a huge hit for a keyboard thing, and and then Panama and all the other songs on our album, but the previous album, there was some keyboards in that too. And there were even some songs that we didn't know were keyboards. We were wondering, what is that? People actually thought Eruption had to be keyboards or something, because that couldn't just be guitar. I mean, the way the guy, like what I think is really interesting about what we heard stories tonight is that the music came to him. He had an ability and a talent and skill that he was able to express what was coming to him. But he didn't know, did other people get it? Like, he was about as giddy about what was coming through him, through his hands into the instruments and making the music. He was as giddy about it as anyone could be, but he wasn't sure, is this something anyone else is going to care about our life? And that's so interesting to hear that perspective. How humble he was.
Let's get Alice.
Yeah, well, he almost didn't know his genius. It's almost kind of like an Einstein thing, where Einstein, was this guy working at the patent office.
Really? What was his name?
The next thing you know, his genius comes up with the equation.
Wow.
Seeing the world in a way no one else did, And Eddie was like that. And
Seriously?
in the music
music sphere into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at it.
You guys, this is Alice Martinez.
No.
Oh, no.
1977 is when I first met her.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Alice?
Alice?
Yeah.
A-L-I-C-E.
Yeah.
For the events, we always
I really liked what somebody wrote about this event too. Prior to coming here, I read on the homepage of the book store them talking about how this book really reads like a novel.
It's Alice Martinez.
My favorite color, purple.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you got the hat.
Yeah, see?
Right on.
Oh, you're welcome.
I can go. Do you go by Steve or Steven?
Either one.
Thank you.
I think
So many people writing up
Steve.
Steven. I like Steve. You like Steven? I like Laz. Laszlo's my name, but since high school, my friend started calling me Laz, and just Laz stuck, so you can say, make it Laz.
L-A-Z?
L-A-Z.
I'm gonna tell him my boyfriend and his brother are half Hungarian.
Oh wow, yeah.
Like you. So you're probably full-blooded.
I was born here, but my parents both met here, but they were both Hungarian.
Oh, okay.
But my last name, Lenzel, actually means Polish.
Oh.
So my dad must have some Polish.
You're probably Polish then, too.
Maybe. I'm really looking forward to reading this.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
I'm really, and I'm sorry I waited so long. I should have read it before I came here.
Last in line. Hey, buddy. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
you're welcome. I was excited about it. Congratulations. It's great. Big deal. Good for you. Proud? I mean, it must feel great.
That feels unbelievable.
Yeah. Did Eddie?
What's that?
Did Eddie?
I don't think they do.
Ever express like particular pride in one record?
That's a good question. I think he liked Fair Warning, only because he had the Delta. Oh, I do too. I think his playing is amazing.
The minute I got this, I went through it
play
probably 10 times
stuff
on the
I
first
heard,
day alone.
and I could like transpose whatever I heard.
Who's your favorite pianist?
Wow, that's a hard question. Oh my God.
Rock and roll, that is. You like people like Jerry Lee Lewis?
Yeah, of course. God, I never thought about that question.
You never thought of it?
No, because I like so many different people. I mean, the first song I ever learned to play on piano, that was by a rock pianist. It was called Crocodile Rock. I mean, I listen to every kind of, I know, I love all kinds of music, and I learned to play stuff that I heard, you know. I mean, I'd say to me, Eddie was the greatest because to me, he did something special for me.
Exactly.
Keyboard playing beyond what any other guy playing a keyboard ever did.
I like to be on guitar myself.
I love him on guitar, but Jump was a lot of that kind of arpeggiating kind of stuff, you know.
There was a lot better songs on 1984 album.
I agree. I totally agree with that, but I appreciated what he did for, you know, keyboard players, and that he you know, he did what he wanted to do.
Yeah, he definitely did what he wanted to do.
What he did on guitar, I don't even understand.
It was amazing. The first time I heard him blew me away.
What was going on? Yeah. Even that dancing in the streets and diving down, what he was doing there, and I'm like, how in the hell is he making these sounds? It's just like, I mean, how?
Yeah, that'll be good.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, and I look forward to finding your book.
Okay. Well, you gotta get it from me probably, or else Van Halen's hard. But his one side, wider side, it's a really cool story.
Well, then
When you go to Zlozower, Z-L-O-Z.com,
I can tell.
all right, take it easy.
appreciate meeting you.
Hey, it's nice to meet you. I had actually reached
Oh, look at that. There you go. Right on. Right on, Alice.
Yeah.
From one killer keyboard guitar player to another keyboard guitar player. There you go.
What had happened was, I had,
Enjoy Steve's book. That's funny.
I guess bought
Rock on. Look at that signature. That's a real rock and roll signature.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. What a day. We had a wonderful day, didn't we, Johnny? Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome.
Kurt
I'm so glad.
You want one?
I'm so glad that you came down, Alice, or over or around or wherever, however you got it.
Over and through the woods.
What were you doing?
If I could be a hog to ask him more questions, I'd ask him about like the Kramer guitars. You know.
I knew somebody that went to school with Van Halen at Pasadena High School.
You do?
I saw the yearbook.
Oh, you do?
Really? Edward was in it. Yeah.
Where'd you get them to come down and show?
Oh, I know. Yeah, it was in black and white, the picture. And they only had the senior year, not the other year. Yeah, like nowadays.
Yeah, and both Vega. Both Vegas are in it.
I only have one of
This is before. This was April
Mine
26th
too.
and 27th.
Yeah.
And there's another shot too, and you can see it. Like, I don't.
Gotta get his autograph
Get
too.
out of your way. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll see on the new book, I did the scans myself.
There's Neil's picture.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did all this.
What's that?
This is from City Magazine.
Oh.
Yeah. So he had to send it in, and they were like, I guess their manager was, yeah, we don't want any bad photos. And so they approved all of them, and they, yeah, they published.
That Halen did.
Yes.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I've really been here.
So Edward,
But it's funny.
Edward okayed the photos, but he wouldn't care what I wrote about it. It's so weird. But then, like Neil said, you know, but then just to show Ed the photos and like look at it, unless it was for like a magazine, you just couldn't be bothered with it. It's such a strange syndrome they had.
I never got to meet him, I never got to see him play, and it still kills me on the inside.
So what I'm kind of doing is like I'm doing kind of
Yeah, I mean,
so I'm doing we're trying to train me on like stuff.
I'm sorry.
I don't even know his name. I don't think it's a name, but it's a man.
B30s that they have a specific way, some soldered speakers, which is nice.
Should I buy a combo or should I just say like
Michael's probably watching right now.
Oh.
Johnny.
We put them in before you know this guy?
Yeah, I've been on his show.
Extremely tight. So
Yeah, I don't know anything. Seriously, I'll tell you, I don't know. Johnny, how do I get this tag hash?
I helped him with his Facebook page,
Oh, okay.
ToneChaser page. I helped him with
Got me
it.
through a freaking
Yeah.
nightmare on Facebook. Said, "Oh, we don't want you," and they kicked me out, and I couldn't get on.
Oh yeah, that's right.
oh, okay, that's the big
Whatever reasons they come up with.
So it is recent.
I mean, I'm
Well, nonetheless. Yeah.
You have any of your music?
We're working on music. So,
You do? I mean,
yeah.
send me some stuff or some MP3s? Or,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
It already has the jack and stuff, but just like a wire to it, or two separate sheets or
Email or whatever you want.
Absolutely.
that's the bomb also would do that.
That's kind of what I want to do.
I have to check the bomb also use
back
what I'm working on with Kramer. I have 3 designs that I haven't shown them. But I have one that I show off and I showed it on Johnny's show.
Really?
Picture, yeah.
They were 412.
You got it with the
Still slowly working on it.
Why I want to use it that way is because I want to get that more green back for a second frame. Yeah. And I want to be able to use it. I don't know why.
You like that?
You got this. You got this.
Her shoes? Oh yeah, we got
My Eddie shoe.
wow.
Felt appropriate.
Well, that's the whole thing. But I
Or a speaker. So you heard of this ratings of speakers?
You choose the same
So
time.
like
They're both gone.
it's
It's a precious shot.
99 or 100.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lot louder.
I'll be
Yeah, those two.
One's gonna be louder than the other.
It's just so great how
As long as I would do is do an X pattern.
I guess I gotta get a book. Who was that? Somebody on here wants me to get them a book.
So
Somebody
wants me to get a book for them. Yeah.
because it's
Do you have the books here?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I have a book. I don't know if I have a book. Like,
Are they in the
don't
trunk?
confuse me.
The other one.
Who was it that wanted a book?
Oh my God.
Let me know.
I talked.
You don't know who wants the book.
Yeah? Oh no, I'm talking to the thing.
If anybody's interested, I have some postcards and bookmarks here.
Oh.
I put them in your book.
How much?
For you?
Yeah.
$10 each.
Can I get some to give away on my show?
Absolutely.
Can you sign them?
Yeah, happily.
Johnny will give them away.
We'll be doing some giveaways
not gonna be on the
on the show. Oh wow. Look at those.
You guys?
I got you soon, but I'll take
just show you this and I'll walk
just a couple.
Oh, Jay Turner, thank you so much for that. We'll get that. Thanks for reminding me.
Very nice.
They told me no stripes, and I was like, I can still.
Find this for my brother-in-law.
Sure.
Please.
What's his name?
Danny.
Danny?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Yeah, can you text me that name, please?
S-A-R-I-N-A?
Yes.
The person that just texted me, can you please text me that name? And please don't. Never mind. Can you sign them? Yeah. We're gonna get some of these just like that. We're gonna get some of those to give away.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, man.
Hey.
Great you're down here. I watch you all the time.
Oh, really? What's your name?
I think I was the 300th official signed subscriber on this show.
Really?
Number 365.
Wow, cool.
Way back.
Cool.
Best show online, best show in TV, best show in media, best show, period. Rock and roll, live on. Van Halen, live on.
Cool.
The de facto man in charge. Thank you for all the work.
Hey,
Thank you.
What's your name?
I'm Joe.
Joe.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Awesome. You're welcome, man. Thank you.
I did not. He was usually handling other stuff.
Smash that thumbs up.
Yeah, so the artist I did.
Awesome, huh?
Ryan was just like, why didn't you like turn around and wave and say hi to everyone? I'm here. When I was,
I'm there.
yeah, he wrote me.
Oh.
Yeah, Ryan.
That's great.
I would have been in the house or something.
I want to do like the chugging.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, was that New Year's Eve?
Yeah.
Or Christmas?
That was so good.
I remember those.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a few of these signed to do some giveaways?
Sure.
And I need to get a book too.
I came down here with him. I drove from Sacramento down here. Well, I didn't drive. Laz drove. I drove with them. Been hanging out. I loved hearing you talk about the book and your story.
Oh, really? Oh, cool, man.
Great,
Thank you.
It was really cool. I'm a guitar player myself, so
Nice.
obviously looked up to Eddie. And
Oops.
it was cool. I did have one question about it.
Sure.
What do you think Wolf's role is now for the Van Halen family and just going forward? What do you think Ed would want for him?
I think Ed would want for him to be happy.
Yeah, right?
Look, the kid's got everything in the freaking world, right? He's got a career, he's talented, he's got money. I don't know how happy he is. Look, I've never met him, I've never spoken to him, but we read some of that stuff online, and I don't know. It seems like he's always chasing after something, and I know he's trying to defend his dad, and defend what he does. And I don't think maybe it's easy being Wolfgang Van Halen, you know?
I look up to, him and I are similar age, and I connect with him more than I do Ed because of that, and I really see a lot of what he's kind of going through, and it's a big interest of mine to see where he ends up going with his music, his life, really, you know?
Yeah. I mean, hope he gets it together. I mean,
I saw him down in Sacramento. It was a ton of fun. We saw him at WDH. They stole the show. It was great. You know, they rocked
he's
it.
very talented.
I mean,
he's got
he was way bigger in the room, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And then that's not a fat joke either.
He's got to be careful, man. I mean, no offense. My mom
No,
was
I don't
overweight.
take offense at all. You do? You have to be careful.
He's younger. If we can pull that thing up, man, 10 more years. My mom was heavy. It's just not a good place to be.
You're 100% right, man.
I used to have Mustang.
I
had a 60. I really when I showed him my first car, and I had a Jaguar, and then I realized this thing could be an everyday car, and I started taking it apart a few months after buying it, so I needed something to drive every day. So I bought a 365 convertible Mustang for $1,800.
Everybody else tries to give the same signature. I try not to do the same one twice. I've worked long and hard on that too, let me tell you.
Wow. And I'm keeping all these. They're all
Is that cool, Johnny?
Oh yeah, that's good. That's
good.
good. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
And can I get, really quickly, can I get a shot with you? Because we just met. I mean, sort of.
I will share the book here.
Oh, you have a book? You guys, Steve Rosen, what do we have here? We got 78 people watching.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Nice. Where are you people? You should have been here. I can't do this by myself.
Right on. Can I get a, this is Steve Rosen, you're watching Johnny Beane TV.
Hey everybody, this is Steve Rosen, you're watching Johnny Beane TV. Hey!
Yeah. Thank you, man. Right on.
You're able to shoot most of the stuff?
I filmed the entire thing.
Did you really?
Yeah. Yeah, so you can use it.
Can I? Yeah. You know Chris Bello? Actually, Chris is my guitar pick connection. I keep getting guitar pick and Van Halen guys, but he does he helps me with my Instagram and stuff, putting stuff up there. Oh, right. Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Take a picture together?
Sure.
Who's gonna take it?
You guys come up, you can email me.
Okay, thanks.
Zlozower 569.
Okay. We got those. We'll be doing some giveaways for these. And then who was that that wanted the book? I need to get a book. Where can I get a book?
In the front?
Yeah. At the register?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get Zloz. Hey.
Color Crush.
That was cool.
My old art director who did all my books except this. Yeah, I don't know what he changed it, probably to best.
Hey, hey, my name's Johnny Beane. I met you at the NAMM show years ago. Yeah.
Millions of people to NAMM show.
Yeah, yeah. But
nice to you.
Yeah, it's just.
You were nice to me, although I told you that we were Facebook friends, and you said I don't know any of those people.
No, I don't. As a matter of fact, my girlfriend one day, it was my birthday, she was in Japan, and we woke up, and it's your birthday. She goes, you should go on Facebook. You have over 500 birthday wishes. I go, baby, those aren't my friends. I don't know any of those people. So I whipped out my phone, started reading. I don't know him. Don't know him. Don't know him. Don't know her. Don't know her. Don't know him. I know that person. Don't know him. Don't. Those aren't. I never go on Facebook. I'll go on Instagram, but I never go on Facebook.
But it was normal.
Well, hey, I do some YouTube shows. I do a Van Halen show. I do a lot of different talk shows and stuff.
Okay.
And can I get a channel ID? Real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Can you say,
Sorry, what was your name
It's
again?
called Johnny Beane TV.
Beam?
Beane.
B-E-A-N-E. Johnny Beane.
Johnny Beane.
Hey folks, Neil Zlozower here. Check out my good friend Johnny Beane TV.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
But let me do one more. Where is it?
We're good Facebook friends.
Okay. Wait, where is it though? The Johnny Beane TV.
It's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. It's
Okay,
everywhere.
let's do one more. Okay.
It's everywhere.
Hey folks, Neil Zlozower here. Check out Johnny Beane TV on Facebook and YouTube. You'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. No problem. Thank you. Great to meet you. I've been a huge fan of your work for decades.
Yeah, I've been around for a long time, unfortunately. I'm old. Yeah, so, anyway. All right, cool.
Right on. Can I get a couple of these signed?
Yeah.
Right here? Steve signed some of these for me. I'm going to do some giveaways on my show.
Where do you live?
I live in Santa Cruz.
Okay, there's a lot of rain up there.
Oh, dude.
Did you come down just for this?
Yeah.
Do they still have that amusement park there?
Yeah. Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk.
Is it open all the year round or just in the summer?
All year round.
They make any money?
I think so. It's always there. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Steve didn't sign these. I'm not going to sign them if Steve didn't sign them.
Right
You got
on.
enough there.
Right on. I'm giving them away.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
So you came down from Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Are you a Bay Area guy?
Yeah, Santa Cruz, Berkeley, Walnut Creek, San Ramon.
Cool. I grew up in the Bay Area. That's what I'm asking. I grew up in San Jose and stuff, so I used to go to Santa Cruz all the time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I know Santa Cruz as well.
Santa Cruz. Yeah, I love it there. I love it. I love Santa Cruz.
My getaway. Right. So right up 17.
Yeah, because you're
I drive 17 twice a week up to San Jose and back from Santa Cruz all the time.
Do you work up there?
Yeah, I work in Walnut Creek.
What do you do?
I'll wait till I'm off this. I'm a musician. I play guitar for a living.
So far, never.
Right on. Hey, you guys. Yeah, I'm live on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
I do.
I designed both books. I designed ToneChaser, and I designed this photo.
No way. Can I get you on here?
That's nice. Stay there. And one without the hands, just proud and nice and handsome. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Let's see. You got 66 people watching. Do you want to introduce yourself and what you do?
Hi, everybody. I'm Daniel Gray. I'm the designer of the book ToneChaser and Ed Buys Lows, the Neil Zlozower Eddie Van Halen photography book. So, Coffee Table Photography book and ToneChaser by Steve Rosen. I designed both.
Awesome. Right on. Right on. Yeah. I have both Zloz books, but I have them on my iPad.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't have the physical copies of them.
Yeah. So have you seen the new one?
No. Do they have it here?
No. Here.
Oh.
Can we pull it? You got it.
I got it. I got to get it. Oh, that's it right there.
Yeah, you got to see this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Can we borrow your phone for a second? Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen this. I keep hearing about it.
You've never seen that before?
No.
Jeez, Johnny. I designed it.
You designed that?
Yeah. I designed art. I picked every single photo in the book. So I went through every photo Neil has ever shot of Van Halen.
Oh my God.
Thousands and thousands of photos to pick the best 300 for this book.
Dang.
So a lot of cool stuff in it. Any fan would love it. Go to Zloz.com and check it out.
Oh yeah, that's festival.
So
it's all photos.
Yeah, it's a total photo book. So this is more of a coffee table photo book.
Wow.
And Steve's book is more of a book, written book. But I designed both and picked all the photos for this.
Nice. I gotta get one.
It's cool.
Gotta get one.
You gotta do mine. Oh, however you want.
Happy to do it.
I guess wherever there's room, but
Yeah, I've been sticking my signature on there.
oh,
That's I gotta grab one of those books.
thank you very much.
Look at this. So you guys, we'll be doing some giveaways for this stuff. You guys know what to do. Tune in Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific, for exclusively Van Halen.
Thank you.
And each show we'll do a drawing for one of these. So you gotta subscribe. You gotta be subscribed to this channel. And you gotta be in the chat to win. Look at that. Steve Rosen, Neil Zlozower. Hey, Stefan Blues just ordered a copy of Rosen. Right on. Oh yeah, that's right. I won't be live tomorrow because I'm traveling. Although I may be live from a guitar factory. We will see. It's raining really bad here in LA. A lot of storming, a lot of raining. There you go. There you go. Look at that.
How big is the process?
You want to win one or two? You got to tune in.
In perfect condition, were they?
They're in good condition.
And yeah, by the way, Book Soup is really nice.
Yeah, I mean,
This is a really nice place. A lot of cool stuff. They actually have records here too, like vinyl.
Take on this has been so skewed by what's going on nowadays.
All right. Thank you, Jay Turner. Thank you, man. All right. Cool. All right, guys. I'm gonna end the stream. It's raining out. Yeah. Neil is here.
Now I realize.
It's awesome. By the way, check out the previous video on this channel. I was live at Guitar Center Hollywood, and I was looking at the Eddie Van Halen guitar there, the Kramer. There's a striped Kramer. Check out that video. Again, subscribe to this channel if you're brand new. Alright, I'm going to end this, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Alright, Johnny Beane. Johnny Beane TV live from Book Soup. There we go. Alright, rock on, dudes. Bye-bye.